When your horse spooks, it can often be a jarring experience because it usually happens out of the blue. And so today I wanted to walk you through how to handle a horse when it spooks. So I'm going to cover short-term fixes, and then I'm also going to cover long-term fixes. And the short-term fixes are when you are in the situation, here's what you can do to get your horse back under control. Long-term fixes are how you can help your horse progress and become more confident. So to start out, number one, always a great place to start, is the one rein stop. So with the one rein stop, you're pulling your horse's head to your knee and they're moving their hind end. And this really limits their movement to where if they are trying to bolt or take off or just getting spooky, you can put them in this circle and you have a little bit more control of their movements. The big things to remember with the one rein stop, number one, you're going to bring your hand down the rein so it's kind of shorter, and then out and back to your hip. Because if you're going to just try to pull straight back, it's not going to work as much. Tucker can do it because he knows what I want, but to really get your horse on that circle, your hand has to come out and back to your hip, and then you're going to put this leg behind the girth. Let me show y'all. You're going to put this leg behind the girth to get that hind end stepping around. So when you put it together, the ultimate goal is to keep the horse moving on the small circle compared to just coming to a standstill where they can then do something stupid. One thing not a whole lot of people talk about is if you want the one rein stop to work, you need to practice it regularly, mainly because it requires the horse to flex and be supple through their body. And if your horse can't do that, it's going to be very hard for them to go on that circle. And instead, when you go to ask them to bring their head back, they're going to stick their head up and they're going to continue to bolt off. So every day I get on my horses, I first flex them like left and right like this and make sure they can bring their head back. And then I also want to encourage that movement. So I'll practice this for just a second where I get him to move. Good. So yes, if you want the one rein stop to work for you in those situations, make sure you're practicing those two things every single day with your horse. Another thing you'll want to practice with the one rein stop is you will want to practice this at a trot and a canter too, and going into the one rein stop. Mainly just once again, if a horse has done it before, it's easier for them to do it again, and you won't get your horse fighting you and like sticking their head straight up in the air. So you can do this when you get on your horse. Hand's gonna come down, out and back, leg on, and they go into that tight circle. If your horse has bolted and they are full speed galloping away, sometimes the one rein stop won't work. It's a little tricky to do from a gallop because you don't want your horse to turn so fast they fall over. The first thing you want to do is break their train of thought. So if a horse is bolting, they're in flight mode, they're not really thinking. So if you can break that train of thought, you can start kind of slowing them down. If my horse is bolted, it usually takes me a few seconds to realize what's happening. But then once I do, one thing I found very useful is I will start zigzagging them like this, and that really seems to break that train of thought, and it's something you can do at a gallop. But if you can get your horse moving their feet out of that straight line, then you can kind of get them mentally back with you. So start there, and then from there, you know, if you're galloping, you're going pretty fast, I'll try to get them on a bigger circle, and then I just wind down into the one rein stop. So once we're on the big circle, by the time you get to that point, the horse is back with you, you know. But then you can bring them back onto the one rein stop, putting your hand down and going into this small little spin. We all know there's different levels of spook. You know, sometimes the horse will just be like, okay, what is that? Other times the horse is like actively trying to get away. So if he were to look at this log pile, I would just ignore it. I would keep looking straight and I'd just ride on as if it wasn't even there. The reason for this is your horse is kind of looking to you to gauge whether they should be scared of something. And unfortunately, if we feel our horse is getting nervous, we will often get nervous too. And so he may see that log pile and I can start feeling him getting a little unsure, and I will just subconsciously tighten my reins and I'll kind of get like this, like I'm ready for him to bolt. And that tells him everything he needs to know, that that log pile is terrifying. So if you can just ignore it and just stay loose in your saddle, stay relaxed, look up and forward, that's going to help you out a lot. If you have a horse that's a chronic spooker or they're just chronically nervous in general, chances are it comes back to you and what you're subconsciously communicating to them through your body language. So I have an online course that walks you through step by step how your body may be communicating with your horse what exactly it's telling your horse, and then how to fix it. This is How to Build Trust with Your Horse online course. The link is in the description and it's at shop.equinehelper.com. So sometimes, even if you ignore the object, the horse is still going to be iffy and looky. They're going to want to stop and look. The best thing for your horse is not to let them stop and look, because that allows your horse to kind of hyperfixate on what the problem is. If you can keep their feet moving, even if you want them to stay by the object and get used to it, but keep their feet moving, because a horse that's moving is a horse that's thinking. And so I will never let my horse stop at something they are really kind of freaked out about. Another thing people don't realize is sometimes things can just startle your horse and it wasn't what they expected, and so that's why they're kind of scared of it. Tucker here, for example, will be on the trail and sometimes we'll come around a turn and there's just a weird stump that he was not ready for, and it will just set him off a little bit. So one thing I've learned with him is to advance and retreat, and this is a normal horse training tool, but it's where you approach the object, you know, you get the horse close to it, and then you immediately go away from the object. And the reason you do this is it lets your horse kind of have a mental release, because the more a horse does something, the more it learns. They learn by repetition. So if he can approach this object a few times and just get that repetition going, it'll be easier for him to accept it. You may be wondering, is it ever okay to get off your horse if your horse is really just spooky or looking at something? If you ask me, I 100% say yes. Sometimes you can provide more guidance and comfort for your horse when you're on the ground compared to in the saddle. So being in the saddle is not quite natural for a horse, but if I'm to get down on the ground, communicate face to face, this is natural for them. This is how they look at other horses, and this is how they look at you. So I think this is a great way to fix problems and help your horse calm down. Once again, the biggest place I'm going to start is with my own body language. Tucker here is a sensitive horse. So this is one thing I do with him, is sometimes all he needs is for me to get back down on the ground and just stand with him. And I just try to mirror what I want from him. Like, I want him to be relaxed and loose and just chilling. I try to breathe deep so that my heart rate is slow, so that he will slow his heart rate. And if I just get off sometimes and stand here for like 1 or 2 minutes, it will immediately help him relax. So going back to that online course, this is something I cover in there. The real benefit to getting on the ground with your horse is, once again, to show them what you want and for him to actually see it. Because if I'm on his back, it's kind of a little bit of a disconnect. So I'll be loose, I'll be relaxed. There's also groundwork exercises you can do to help them get relaxed, like through their body, and it's just really simple, super easy. I'm gonna show you how to do it with a bridle on, because chances are you'll use this when you have a bridle on. So I leave the reins over the horse's neck. I just want to get him walking around me, just slow. It doesn't need to be anything. And then what I'm going to do, same thing as the one rein stop, I'm going to kind of bring my hand back and step towards the hind end to where he steps around. Then I'll let him stop and chill. Then we'll do it again. And so yeah, we're not doing anything crazy. We're not running around. That's the last thing I want. And then I also want to try and keep him moving out of that hind end stepping around. Good, and move on. And this is a great exercise for your horse because it helps them use their body correctly, which naturally helps their body relax. So they're stepping their hind leg under itself, and that automatically just kind of corrects the way the horse is moving. It's helping the horse carry itself better. So that's why it's a great exercise. Overall, controlling your own body language is the key to helping a spooky horse, and it can take a really anxious horse and make them into a great trail horse. So be sure to check out that online course. It's at shop.equinehelper.com, and it's How to Build Trust with Your Horse.